Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever your time zone, wherever you are in the world at the moment. Welcome along to the Masterclass today on growing resilience and mental well-being. My name is Graham Gerstenberg. I'm CEO of Magical Learning. Very grateful to have the opportunity to share this session with you today, and would like to start by acknowledging the amazing people at the Catholic Education Archdiocese in Canberra and Goulburn for giving us this opportunity to share some knowledge and hopefully some helpful tips with you on how to maintain greater resilience and take care of your mental health, and particularly as part of Are You OK Day in September 2020. And before we dive into the content for this masterclass today, I would also like to start the session by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia, their ongoing connection to land, culture and community, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Okay, we have quite a bit to get through today. I want to acknowledge that this is not a live session, so if you have questions from any of the content that we share in this masterclass, we will provide contact details at the end of the session. So please feel free to reach out if you would like more information about any of the things that we discuss, or if you feel there may be another way that we could help. We'd love the opportunity to be of further assistance to you. So a quick overview of what we're going to cover in today's session. We're going to start by looking at emotional intelligence and talk a little bit about why EQ is so valuable as a skill set for us today. We'll share some specific tips that you can do, some things that you can do to actually grow your emotional intelligence skills. We're also going to explore the idea of resilience. So what does resilience actually mean? Why is it so important for us today? And why is it so intricately linked with our mental well-being? I'm not sure if you can pick this up at the moment. I'm at home, so we live on a property halfway between Gundagai and Cootamundra in sort of central New South Wales, and we have some rain coming through at the moment. We live in a farmhouse that my wife's grandfather built 90 odd years ago. So I've got a lot of rain on a tin roof at the moment. It sounds glorious, but I'm hoping it's not affecting the sound of this session too much for you. It looks brilliant. I love the rain. It's fantastic. It makes me feel very resilient. We're also going to talk about some things that you can do to actually build more resilience for yourselves. And hopefully, if some of this information, some of these tools or strategies are helpful for you, then please feel free to share them with others if you feel they may also benefit. And I want to wrap up today by talking about self-care and why it should be the #1 priority for every human being on the planet right now. So that's where we're at. That's what we're going to cover. Again, really grateful for you investing your time in watching, listening to this masterclass. And here we go. I love quotes. I love quotes. This one just resonates with me so strongly in the context of everything that's going on for us on planet Earth at the moment. And just, you know, in Australia, particularly for people in Victoria, Melbourne, stage 4 lockdown, all of that. The world is full of suffering. It is also full of overcoming. And for me, that speaks so strongly to our often untapped and undervalued ability to deal with uncertainty and disruption and chaos and tragedy and still come through. I'll probably come back to that quote a little later on. I hope it resonates for you. So let's talk emotional intelligence, or EQ as we like to refer to it. An old, I think still relevant quote, or sorry, definition of EQ is the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Now, the model on the screen that you're looking at the moment comes from Dr. Martin Newman, a psychologist who's done a lot of research into emotional intelligence, published several books, and he provides some really insightful, very helpful emotional intelligence assessments that we use with a lot of our business clients and executive coaching clients. This model looks at 5 elements, key elements or domains of emotional intelligence. Again, there are a number of models out there. They are all quite similar. The labels or the terminology, the actual language they use may be a little different, but the fundamentals are still basically the same. Emotional intelligence is a set of skills that we can build. It's not something we're born with. It's not something handed down from your parents or your family or anyone. It is absolutely a set of skills that you can build and develop and grow over time. The 5 elements or domains of emotional intelligence on Martin Newman's model. First is self-awareness, and that's really just being aware of the emotions that you're experiencing and understanding what triggered those emotions, good or bad, positive, negative emotions, it doesn't matter. What am I feeling and why am I feeling it? Self-awareness. Self-management is about then being able to manage my emotional state in a healthy, productive way. So for example, you're at work, something happens, it triggers a strong frustration, sense of frustration for you. Call it anger, but let's go with frustration. So I'm just really frustrated right now. If I have low self-management, everybody around me would instantly know that I'm really frustrated because I don't have the capacity for being able to manage myself. If I am high in self-management, I will have a healthy, productive way of being able to hold that emotional reaction internally in the short term. But then when it's safe to do so, I will have a healthy way of being able to process and release that emotion. Now, that might be 20 minutes after I have the reaction. I sit down with a colleague at work, or I pick up the phone and I call somebody I trust and I say, look, have you got 10 minutes? I need to have a bit of a download about something that happened earlier today. Managing my reaction, my emotional state, particularly my negative emotional state, is about self-management. It's not about repressing the emotion or pretending that I'm not experiencing it. Social skills and so social awareness, probably jump over to that one first, is understanding the emotions that other people are experiencing, recognizing their emotions. The social skills is also recognizing how my emotional state can impact others. And one of the really important aspects of social skills is empathy, which is not literally feeling what someone else is feeling, because that's essentially impossible. Our feelings are all driven by our brain, and no one has the same brain as me. So it's not necessarily feeling what someone else is feeling, but it is helping them to understand and helping them to feel that I understand what they're feeling and that their feelings are completely valid for them in that moment. So empathy does not involve judgment in any way, shape, or form. It's just helping somebody else feel that whatever they're feeling is okay there and then. And then the last aspect of EQ using this model is adaptability. And a key part of adaptability is understanding what motivates us as human beings emotionally. What are the things that I get excited or inspired about? What are the things that I don't get excited or inspired about? What elevates my energy? What drains me of energy? Another important part of adaptability, which is so important today, is having the emotional capacity to deal with something unexpected happening and continue to function well and still have a generally positive sense of myself and a generally positive outlook on what I'm doing and where I'm going. So it is being able to adapt on the fly. Now, adaptability has always been important for us as human beings because despite what we like to think about how life once was, it's never been the same week in, week out, year in, year out. There has always been change of some form in who we are, what we do, where we live, where we work, the community, society around us. It has always been changing. It's just at the moment, some of the changes are a lot more drastic and definitely unforeseen, unexpected, and some of them haven't yet moved on as much as we would like them to. Emotional intelligence as a set of skills is incredibly important today because we interact with lots of other human beings, and human beings are, by definition, emotional creatures. Now, again, we can try and pretend not to experience any emotion at all, but that's not necessarily a healthy way of going. So understanding myself as an emotional creature and being able to understand others makes it easier for me to communicate with them, makes it easier for me to genuinely hear and understand them, and also to empathise with them. The model on the screen now is called the Emotional Pendulum, and we have found this a very useful model for helping someone understand or tune into their emotional state and be able to regulate their emotional state. So this comes back to the idea of self-control, self-regulation, self-management. If you think of your emotions as swinging on a pendulum, like an old grandfather clock, and at one end of the arc of the pendulum, we can be in a really high positive state. It's almost, it's like being on a drug high. It's just everything is fantastic, everything is awesome, everything's amazing. When we're in that really high positive state, we tend to block out all of the potential downsides or negative aspects or risks of a situation. Some people experience the joy of buyer's remorse because they get so excited about spending money on something or buying something. And when they see this, it's just like, it's perfect, it's the thing I want, and I go and buy it. But because I'm in this really high positive state, I don't see any of the bad or negative aspects of the thing that I spend my money on. And it's only when I calm down again, and I'm back closer into that neutral zone, that calm centered state, that my brain can actually see all of the negative aspects of that thing that I purchased. And then I think, oh, why did I buy that? I don't ever like that color. It doesn't suit me. I bought a pair of shoes once, they don't even fit me. Why did I do that? Emotional pendulum. The other end of the arc in the emotional pendulum is when I'm in a really down, low, negative state. And that's almost like being depressed. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong. There's nothing good or bad, wrong or right with having your emotional pendulum swinging. It's just important to recognize that we don't have access to all of the information. If I'm in a really low, down, negative state, I can't see all of the potential upsides or positive aspects of a situation. So the best place for me to be, particularly when I need to make choices or important decisions, is neutral. It's in that calm, centered state because I've then got access to all of the information around me. More importantly, about 15 years ago, approximately, neuroscientists got very excited because they identified a new type of neuron in the human brain, and they called it a mirror neuron. It's up towards the front part of the brain, and it tends to fire when we are around other people. And one of the things it does is that it tends to encourage us to mirror the state or the emotions of other people. So one of the phrases that psychologists have coined around this mirror neuron firing is this idea of emotional contagion. So we pick up on the emotional state, the energy state of other people, good or bad. And you may have experienced this if you spend 5 or 10 minutes with somebody who's just really bright and bubbly and cheerful and positive, and they've got lots of resilience. And yes, there's a lot of mess going on at the moment, but life's pretty awesome anyway. And when we spend time with somebody like that, it often uplifts us. So it brings our energy state up. If you spend time with somebody who's in a really bad, a really dark place, and they're just struggling, so they've got no energy, they're really struggling to find anything to be grateful for, anything to be happy about, you can leave somebody like that feeling drained of energy. So this idea of emotional contagion has been around for a long time. We know that it works. So again, if you think about your own state, if you're dealing with someone, whether it's students, whether it's colleagues, whether it's a manager, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a family member, if you're dealing with someone who's in a strong emotional state and you can see that their pendulum is swinging, the single best place for you to be is in the middle, neutral, calm, centered. Because you can often help influence the other person to slow their pendulum swinging down. And it is possible, in some cases, to actually help bring them back to neutral as well. Now, there's no guarantee that that will happen every time. But by you remaining calm and centered, the other good thing for you is that your brain has access to all of the available information, and that can help you make better choices. And as long as I'm in that neutral state, that calm centered state, all of my brain is functioning, particularly the part of the brain that I normally use when I'm communicating with other people. So I've got all of my mental faculties available to me. One other thing to keep in mind about emotional intelligence and our brain, the brain evolves in 3 stages. So the first stage, if you put your hand on the back of your neck towards the base of your skull, it's approximately where your brain stem is. So the brain stem's the first part of the brain that forms. It's fully developed the day you're born and it doesn't evolve any further. And it looks after all of the automatic functions, things like the respiratory system. So you don't have to constantly remind yourself to breathe as you're walking around. It manages metabolism, body temperature, and a range of other automatic functions. The second part of the brain that forms is sometimes called the midbrain. It's sort of on both sides, and it's called the limbic system. And that's also the part of the brain that manages emotions. And it's the part of the brain that manages the fight or flight response when we get stressed. The last part of the brain to form is the neocortex. And the most important part of the neocortex is the prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain. This is the part of our brain we use the most when we communicate with other people, when we process information, when we make decisions. It's where our filters are, when we filter information. It's where our values sort of sit in terms of, and judgments around, is that a good thing to do or a bad thing to do? All of that's up here. So that's the rational brain. The limbic system's the emotional brain. The prefrontal cortex up here is the rational brain. Now, human beings can't be both rational and emotional at the same time. We're one or the other. Something else to keep in mind, if you're dealing with somebody who's emotional, the first thing you need to do is deal with the emotions, particularly if they're negative emotions. Because until you do that, the rational part of their brain will not function fully. So some of the things that you can do to help build your own emotional intelligence, the first is just reflection. Taking time out during your day to stop and reflect on emotional experiences you've had, good or bad. One of the more popular forms of reflection is journaling. Now I don't have it with me, yes I do. This is my current journal. I've been journaling for 14, 15 years. Don't do it every day, and I'm okay with that. I try and journal first thing in the morning, as soon as I get up, before everything else intervenes, and I've found it incredibly helpful to help me process things that I experienced the day before. So I'll journal first thing in the morning, and I'll think about what happened for me yesterday. What did I experience? What emotions did I feel? Positive and or negative? What triggered those emotions? And if they were negative emotions that did not really serve me, could I have chosen to respond differently? So there's learning in there for me. It's also a beautiful way of being able to deal with emotional experiences. And if things happened for me that were fantastic and made me feel awesome, it's a beautiful way of revisiting that feeling, which is a really good thing. There's a lot of, has been a lot of research done into journaling in the last probably 15 years, and there's a lot of evidence to show it has some really positive benefits for us as human beings. One study in particular found that it actually increases or it can increase and boost your immune system. It has been shown to increase sense of gratitude, resilience, to reduce sensations or feelings of depression, sadness, etc. If journaling's not for you, I still encourage you to try it anyway, because I think it's a really good practice to get into. But if you think that's a bridge too far, then perhaps take time out during your day, particularly after you experience a strong emotional response to an event or a person or a situation. Again, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. When you have that strong emotional experience, just put aside 5 minutes and stop and think about and reflect on, okay, what emotions am I experiencing? What am I thinking? What triggered that? Are these thoughts and emotions helping and supporting me? And if not, could I have chosen a different thought response and therefore triggered a different emotional response? Reflection is really, really valuable. Another thing that can help build your emotional intelligence is just regulating yourself. So practice And this comes back to the self-awareness piece. Every time you find yourself starting to have a strong emotional reaction, particularly if it's a negative reaction, just catch yourself, and then if possible, hit the pause button and just spend 60 seconds breathing. Because one of the things that changes for us when we have a particularly strong negative emotional response is it changes our breathing. We start breathing more shallowly, rapidly from our chest. So something as simple as taking 60 seconds to breathe slowly, deeply, and again, just get my thinking literally to focus on my breath. So I'm just going to start paying attention to big, long, slow inhale. And I'm thinking about how is that feeling as I'm inhaling. Inhale through my nose. So the sensation of the air coming up through my nose, down through my windpipe, etc., filling my lungs. What does that feel like? Also noticing if I'm breathing properly, my belly should be going out as I'm breathing in. And then I might hold that breath for 5 or 6 seconds, and then I'll exhale slowly, but I'll exhale for 6 or 7 seconds. So exhale a little longer than I inhaled. Pay attention to the physical sensations of all of that breath going out of me. If you do that 4 or 5 times, that's about a minute gone. It has an amazing impact on your ability to be calm. So if we think of the emotional pendulum, again, on breathing brings me back to center, to neutral. It also helps me pause and think about what triggered that reaction. And again, is that reaction helping me? Could I react differently next time? Asking for feedback from others is another way of building my emotional intelligence. If you have a colleague that you trust, you could check in with them from time to time. If you've just had a difficult conversation with somebody, you could check in with them and ask, or afterwards you could simply ask them for feedback. How did you feel I managed my emotional state during that? Be open to not necessarily getting positive feedback, so be a little careful with that. And I generally would seek feedback about emotional intelligence from someone I felt was more skilled at it than I was. Another way of building your emotional intelligence is just to stay curious. One of the challenges for us is that when we get into judgment or opinion about someone or something, an event, a person, whatever it happens to be, it's like putting mental blinkers on, and it blocks out a lot of the available information for us. I can't remember who wrote this. It's a saying I read somewhere a long time ago. It's not mine, but I use it a lot, and that is, don't get furious, get curious. Don't react, ask yourself a question. I wonder why. Another tip for building more EQ is just practice some of the emotional intelligence skills. If you don't believe you have, or you're very good at being empathetic with somebody else, at empathizing with them, then practice that. There are some great videos available on the net. There's some really helpful articles out there. There are books that you can read. So the next time you have an opportunity to really empathize with somebody else, just try something a little different. And when it's safe to do so, obviously, if the person is particularly upset, you wouldn't do it there and then, but perhaps a day or two later, you could check in with them again and say, look, I'm really trying to work on my empathy skills. I'm trying to get much better at it. I'd love, how did you feel when I was trying to be empathetic with you the other day? So practice the skills, ask for some feedback, and continue to work on it. Again, ask questions. Ask questions of people you work with, ask questions of people online. There are groups that you can join. There are newsletters that you can sign up for, provide really solid science-backed information about emotional intelligence. Okay, let's talk about resilience. Poor little frog. It's an awesome photo. It's probably been photoshopped, but I really don't care. I just like it anyway. So resilience, there's lots of definitions of resilience out there in the world. The Oxford Dictionary describes as the ability to bounce back quickly from adversity, unforeseen circumstances, etc. A slightly more formal definition, the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant sources of threat. And if you think about what's happening on planet Earth at the moment, many of us are in that state where we are experiencing significant sources of threat. So, yeah, resilience is a good thing to have. We should all have more of it, but why? What's it all about? So here are some facts, if you like, about the value and the importance of resilience. We know that people with greater resilience learn better, they retain information better, and they generally do better in academia. So if we think about kids at school, children with higher resilience will generally perform better than somebody with lower resilience. By the way, this is part IQ, part EQ. It's not just about IQ. I can have a child with an incredibly high IQ, but if they have no emotional intelligence and low resilience, they will not perform as well. I can have somebody with a lower IQ, but they have better EQ and stronger resilience, and they will perform academically generally better. And that's all the way through university. That's school all the way through. So we know we learn better. If we think about adults at work, it's the same situation. If I have more resilience, my brain generally is more forward, more positive thinking. And we know that if I'm thinking more positively most of the time, I am more inclined to learn better. People with higher resilience are able to manage unforeseen circumstances and situations better. So there's lower absences from work. If I have more resilience, I'm also less inclined to make risky decisions. I'm much more comfortable in just sitting with discomfort, sitting in the middle of the messy stuff. I'm okay with that because I've got resilience, rather than taking or making a risky choice because I want to get away from the messy stuff and then it goes pear-shaped afterwards. People with higher resilience are also much more involved in community and family activities. And to be honest, at the moment, I think one of the things that the world desperately, desperately needs is stronger communities. And I'm not sure what level that's at, but if you think of a suburban street or block as a community, maybe that's not a bad place to start. And I acknowledge that, yeah, okay, maybe we can't get together face to face at the moment, but there's lots of other things that we can do to support each other. Greater resilience, I am much more involved in supporting community and supporting my family and people I care about. And again, we also know from science that higher resilience generally leads to improved physical and mental health, regardless of what's happening around us. So let's talk about some of the things that can help or that influence your level of resilience. The first of those is autonomy. Now, autonomy generally is just having a sense that I'm in control of my existence. That can include the work I do, who I work for, where I work, when I work, who I socialize with, where I live, what my social activities are, how often I go to the gym, if that's what I like to do. I might like to eat out. When I have choice, when I feel that I'm in control of a lot of those choices, I have a higher sense of autonomy, which means I can have a higher level of resilience. Now, at the moment, for a lot of us, our autonomy is being threatened because we're being told that you must work from home if you can, that you can't go out, that you can't socialise, that you can go no more than 5 kilometres from your home, for argument's sake. And if you want to exercise, you can only do it within certain hours of the day and you can't go more than a kilometre from your home. Some people are experiencing a loss of autonomy because they have to homeschool their children because schools are closed. So it's important to recognise that all of this stuff absolutely can impact our level of resilience in the short term, but there are other things that we can do to offset that. So if I just focus on all of the negative things that are impacting my autonomy, that can drain my resilience. If I start to think about some of the other things that I still have autonomy over, and I'm grateful for that, that's not a bad place to start. I still get to choose what I eat most of the time. I get to choose what I cook. I get to choose when I eat. I get to choose the books that I read. I get to choose the movies that I watch. I get to choose the music that I listen to. I get to choose who I speak with. I get to choose the conversations I engage in. I get to choose what I learn to some extent because most of the learning at the moment is online. So we still have incredible freedom and autonomy despite everything that's going on. Important to remember that. Self-esteem is another thing that helps build more resilience. For me, the one, I guess, good indicator, perhaps, of self-esteem is paying attention to the voice in your head when you look at your reflection first thing in the morning in the bathroom mirror. So you get up in the morning and do your normal morning routine, whatever it is, and at some point we pretty much all end up looking at ourselves in the bathroom mirror. Might be brushing our hair, brushing our teeth, whatever it happens to be. Now, if you pause for 30 seconds and just catch your reflection in the mirror, what is the voice in your head saying? Do you have really positive, empowering stories about yourself as a human being, or are the stories you're carrying in your head perhaps not so empowering? Where is your sense of self? What can you do to improve it? Optimism is another thing that helps build more resilience. Just having a sense that, yes, this might be messy at the moment. There's a lot of disruption. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of loss of life and tragedy and pain. There's so much. It's uncomfortable. And it will go. It will pass. It always has. It always will. So I'm optimistic about our opportunities, about our future as a species. I'm optimistic about me right now, and that's a good place to be. Happiness and emotional intelligence. We've talked about EQ, choosing happiness every day, choosing happiness first thing in the morning when you wake up. It's a choice. Happiness is a choice. There have been times in my life when I just did not believe that at all. Happiness and emotional intelligence are two other things that impact our resilience. And for me, happiness is very much a choice. I can wake up in the morning and I can think about, I've got to work from home today, still can't go out, restaurants are closed, boss gives me a hard time because he doesn't think I'm working, the kids are stuck at home, my partner's at home, there's no space, try have a Zoom call and it's just pain. I'm sick of this. I really I don't feel like getting out of bed. I just want all this stuff to go away. I hate my life. My life sucks. That's choice number one. Choice number two is I wake up in the morning and think, okay, firstly, I'm so excited and so grateful that I woke up. Secondly, I get to work in my pajamas most of the day, which is pretty awesome. I get to spend a bit more time with the kids, which is good because I don't see them that often. And I get to spend a bit more time with my partner during the day. Maybe we can sit down and have a family dinner tonight, which would be fantastic. I get to work from home and my boss might be a bit of a pain sometimes, but I sort of understand why they're like that. And I'm just so grateful that I'm here and I've got all of this around me and I have a roof over my head and there's food in the fridge and we've got electricity and we've got technology. My life's actually pretty good. I'm pretty happy about where I am. So exactly the same circumstances. Exactly the same. The only difference was mental choice. One, choose to be happy. Two, choose to be miserable. Choose happiness. Works better. Meaning and purpose in life. Another thing that influences our resilience. Having a sense of purpose. One of the things that fundamentally gives us all greater resilience is believing and feeling that we are part of or we're contributing to something that's bigger than us. One of my favourites, resilience influences, is humour. Now, if you may not have met me before and probably still wondering what the story is with the bow tie, because it just, looks a bit weird. It's a long story, maybe later. People who know me will not be surprised if they see me stand here and say to you, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, I am probably the funniest person on the planet. Just saying. Now, if you don't know me, you might be thinking, I seriously doubt that. If you do know me, you won't be doubting it at all. You'll just be laughing your head off because you know that's so far from the truth. It's not funny. Humour is a great way of staying more positive in the face of adversity. So if you don't have many opportunities to laugh about things at the moment, then work on that. If you like, send me an email and I will quite happily email you once a day. It's a terrible dad joke because apparently they're the only jokes I know, but it doesn't matter. Last thing I want to talk about just quickly around resilience influences is altruism and compassion. So for me, altruism is doing something that benefits another human being with absolutely no expectation whatsoever that they will do anything for me, that I will get any recognition, any reward, any acknowledgement at all. I do it because it's a right thing to do. The compassion piece, right now more than anything else, we all need self-compassion to start with. But I'm going to talk about that a little more later on when we talk about self-care. So these are all things that influence our level of resilience. And one of the things I'd love you to think about is where am I at with all of these things? Some things that you can do to build your resilience further. The first is meditation. There have been countless studies done in the last 150, 200 years around the benefits of meditation, and we know without doubt that meditation is good for us physically and mentally. A simple 10-minute meditation practice once a day can have a massive impact on your resilience. And if you've never tried it, I would strongly encourage you to do it. Reframing is another great technique for building more resilience. And it's a little like choosing happiness. Let me give you an example. So in the space of just 3 days, every single training program that we had scheduled in Australia and overseas for the rest of 2020 was cancelled. Every single one. So one frame that we could put around that situation was, oh no, this is a disaster. This is catastrophic. I mean, how are we going to keep our staff employed? How are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to, what are we going to do? This is terrible. I give up. So that's one frame. The other option, which is what we did, was to reframe and simply say, okay, that was sort of unexpected. I didn't think that would happen that quickly. All right, so now that we know we can't run face-to-face courses, what else can we do? Reframe it. What's the opportunity here? So we spent the rest of March and April running a series of free webinars for our clients, for our friends, our colleagues, family, anybody who could be helped. And we just made them freely available because we wanted to help people and because it was a good thing to do at the time. And work gradually came back online, and we're now doing probably not quite as much work, but we're certainly doing a lot more work online than we were. And we're okay, and I'm immensely grateful for that. But reframing is such a powerful thing. Instead of having a reaction and thinking, oh, this is a disaster, put a different frame around it and say, okay, that was unexpected. I didn't see that coming. I wonder what else we could do. What else is possible? Another thing that helps build your resilience is social connections, staying connected with other people. Now, if you're in the middle of a lockdown, if you, and this is more important if you live alone. Now, I, believe it or not, am generally a strong introvert. I like my alone time. I work with a lot of people. Before the lockdown, when social distancing wasn't a thing, I spent a lot of my time working with groups of people from 20 to 200. But I still like my alone time. Having said that, I also recognize that connection with other human beings is incredibly important for all of us. So even if I can't go out, even if I can't take somebody out for lunch or go and have a coffee with someone, there are still countless opportunities for us to stay connected. And if you can't do the face-to-face thing, the next best thing is video. If you look at the planet at the moment, we think about the technology that's available. I have no idea how many apps are available that are free, that enable you to connect with someone around the corner, in the next state, overseas, on the other side of the planet. And you can see them and they can see you, and it's pretty much real time, and the video quality is pretty good and the audio quality is pretty good. So do what you can to stay connected with others, because that also helps maintain higher resilience. Positive thinking. The idea behind positive psychology is, again, and there's a lot of neuroscience to back this up, when our brain is in a positive state, it is more productive, it functions better, it's more efficient, we are more creative, we communicate better, we make better decisions. There's a lot of benefit behind being positive as opposed to being negative, neutral, or stressed. So positive thinking is not just sitting somewhere and thinking everything's beautiful and wonderful and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies and there's absolutely nothing wrong with anything on the planet. There's a big difference between positive thinking and burying your head in the sand, but positive thinking is a really important place to start. And it's also true that you can't simply just sit there and think positively and expect everything to change. We still need to get up and do stuff. But if I start from a positive frame of mind instead of a negative frame of mind, my brain works better, it is open to more possibilities, I'm a happier person to be around, and that has a big impact on others. Laughter, again, phenomenal for building resilience and dealing with stress. Find more opportunities to have fun. Exercise. We've known for centuries that exercise is good for us physically. We now know that exercise also helps our mental well-being. It's good for our brain. Even if you're in lockdown at the moment and your local gymnasium is closed and you can't get there, what can you do at home? If you're not sure, ask Mrs. Google about exercising at home. There are a lot of exercises that you can do that may not be quite as good as going to the gym, but will still keep you in a healthier, physically and mentally, a healthier state of mind. The last one in terms of building resilience is sleep. Think of sleep as the underpinning habit or influence, if you like, for having a good day the next day. If you want to start your day better, it starts the night before you go to sleep. If you don't sleep well on a regular basis, then please do something about that. Sleep is incredibly important for brain health, but it also has a big impact on our physical well-being as well. Okay, I want to talk really quickly about our brain and threat. Now, the human brain is biologically hardwired to pay a lot of attention to potential threats because it has an inbuilt survival mechanism. It wants to stay alive, and it generally wants to keep the physical body functioning as well. So this model is, I borrowed this model from the Neuro Leadership Institute. It was in a webinar that they ran earlier in the year, and I think it resonates a lot at the moment given what we're experiencing. So this idea of threat level is initially, or most of the time when things are okay, we're at level 1 threat awareness. So there are some threats out in the broader environment, but they're not very close to me, so I'm not too worried about them. My brain might pay a little bit of attention to them, but most of the time I'm sort of okay. An example would be COVID-19. When it was first made public that it existed, so this is after the World Health Organization had been notified, and news started trickling down to the rest of the world. Suddenly, okay, there's a new virus happening, sounds like this, sounds like that, maybe it's a bit like swine flu, who knows, but it's in China, it's on the other side of the planet. It's the broader environment, so I'm a little bit aware of it, but I'm not too concerned about it just yet. And then we move into level 2, and this is where the threat is actually in our neighbourhood. Now, again, if we're using COVID as an example, this would be, it's gone from just being in China to now cases have been identified in my country, let's say Australia, or it could have been in New Zealand, wherever you happen to be. Now it's much closer to home. As a result, my brain is now sitting at level 2 threat. Now, what does that mean? Well, a couple of things. Firstly, there's some chemical changes in our brain as well as our bloodstream, as well as our body. So as the threat level increases, the level of cortisol in our bloodstream, the level of cortisol in our brain goes up, the level of dopamine drops, and our blood flow, particularly to the front part of our brain, also starts to diminish. Now, the front part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, is the part of the brain that we use the most day in, day out when we're conscious, to process information, to make choices, to make decisions, to communicate, to listen, to pay attention. So our ability to do all of those things well starts to diminish as our threat level rises. And suddenly, if I'm at level 2, my brain is now paying a lot more attention to any information it can get about that threat. And again, if we talk about COVID-19, what we've been finding is that a lot of people are now paying a lot more attention to the news, for argument's sake, and to the statistics about the number of cases and the number of deaths and everything else. Then we hit level 3. Level 3 is the threat is literally on your doorstep. It's upon you. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you have personally been tested positive, but it could mean that you work with someone has. It could mean that somebody at one of the schools where your child goes to school has been tested positive, or somebody that you know, or it could be that your workplace has just been shut down because somebody who was positive had been found to have gone in there yesterday. It's much closer, it's much more personal, and my threat level is now way up here. So again, cortisol is off the charts, norepinephrine, adrenaline. I am in a real mess. I'm also incapable of thinking clearly, making good choices, making good decisions, etc. at this point. Not a great place to be. And when I hit level 3, in addition to not really being able to function well, my brain wants more information about whatever the threat is. So I tend to pay a lot more attention to news. I tend to pay a lot more attention to the numbers, which ironically actually keeps me at level 3. So at this point, what we need to do is find ways of coming back to a more calm state. How do I get my brain from level 3 back down to level 2, and then hopefully over time back to level 1? And the first way to do that is to stay calm, or come back to calm more of the time. So some simple things around being calmer. Firstly, breathe. The minute we hit level 2, our breathing changes a little. When stress goes to level 3, our breathing changes hugely. So just doing something simple, again, like inhaling, just inhale through your nose for a count of 5. Hold that breath for a count of 5. Exhale for a count of 5, and then pause for a count of 5. Repeat that 4 or 5 times. That's 1 or 2 minutes, and have a huge impact on where your threat level is at. Breathing is massively important. Another helpful technique for being able to come back to calm is just expressing your feelings. So it's acknowledging, you know, I feel really, I'm really worried about this. I'm just really stressed. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I've got the kids at home and trying to work. My boss is giving me a hard time. We've got no money left in the bank, and my partner's just found out that he's not going to have a job for probably the next 6 months. So I'm really, really struggling. Being able to express your feelings to someone else in a healthy way is very important. The worst thing we can do is just try and block it all and suppress it and pretend that it's not a problem. Just suck it up and be a man and move on. Worst thing ever. Suppressing feelings does not make them go away. It just keeps them inside you, and they will fester. So find a healthy, positive way of expressing your feelings. Again, journaling is a beautiful way of doing that. Build your self-awareness. Take time out during the day, every day, to stop and think about what you get. What's going on in your head? What are you thinking? What are you feeling right now? Is it helping you? Another great technique that you can use is creative visualization. If you're feeling stressed, if you're thinking the words, God, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak, find an opportunity to sit quietly somewhere with absolutely no distractions, close your eyes, and try and visualize somewhere on the planet where you would feel completely at peace. And try and bring all of the sounds and the smells and the sensations into that visualization that you can. If visualizing is something that you struggle to do well, again, if you ask Mrs. Google, there are a range of visualizations that are available completely free online. Find one that works for you and spend 5, 10, 15 minutes every day or every couple of days in that visualization space. Another beautiful technique for staying calm is just hang out with Mother Nature. Get outside where you can, as often as you can. If it's safe to do so, and you've got some grass around you somewhere, take your shoes and socks off. I know it might be winter, it might be cold. That's okay. You just do it for 5 minutes. Reconnecting the soles of your feet with Mother Earth is very, very therapeutic in lots of ways. It's really great for your lymphatic system as well. If getting out in Mother Nature is difficult for you at the moment because of where you live, because of lockdown, whatever it happens to be, do the next best thing. Find some music, find some videos. Again, if you go to YouTube, there are videos on there where someone's just gone into a rainforest and set up a camera, and they've just recorded a stream trickling down through this rainforest for 2 or 3 hours, and there's no humans around, and all you have is the sound of nature. And the high resolution videos, some of them are just amazing. Spending just 10 minutes watching something like that can have a big impact and bring you back to calm a lot sooner. Okay, very conscious of time. So just a couple of things to wrap up on. I wanted to finish this masterclass today by talking about self-care and why it's so important right now. So for me, self-care is like the oxygen mask message that we get when we fly. And as you're taxiing out to the runway, the cabin crew will run through the safety demonstration, and part of that is if oxygen is required, a mask will drop down from the panel above you, and without exception, they will always say, put your mask on first. When you're breathing normally, then you can help others, including children. Self-care is putting your oxygen mask on first. Not because you're more important than anyone else, but because you are as important as everyone else. Because of culture, because of conditioning, because of family upbringing, education, it's not uncommon for some of us to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish. And I understand that as a parent, we can sometimes believe that our kids are more important than I am. If I'm a mum, I'll put my children first forever. And the challenge with that is if I don't look after myself, I become less capable. If I'm struggling to breathe and I'm running out of oxygen, but I've taken my mask off and I'm giving it to everybody else around me, at some point I don't function well. I become a less capable parent, colleague, manager, spouse, sibling, friend. So daily self-care is so important right now. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can just be 10 minutes. But it's doing something for yourself that puts oxygen back in your tank, that puts water in your well, whatever metaphor you want to use. Because when you do that, you have more resilience, you are more positive, you are more compassionate, you empathize better, you think more clearly, you are a happier person to be around. Some things that you can do, just some suggestions, by the way, because the self-care thing is such an individual thing. It's whatever works for you. Spend time alone in nature. I talked about the benefit a minute ago of being in nature, but time alone. Again, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, if you can, go outside, sit in the garden, go for a walk. Don't plug in. Go for a walk and pay attention to what's around you. A 20-minute Epsom salt bath, if you have a bath, if you have access to a bath. 20 minutes, Epsom salt's fantastic for draining all of the toxins out of your body and leave you feeling amazing. If you like baths, do that. If you like baths and music, just double whammy. You know, just create a really good playlist or find an album or a song that you love listening to and crank that up when you're in the bath. Exercise can also be, for some people, a great self-care ritual. There's been some, I was reading a study that came out last week of the idea of 30-second high-intensity interval training. So you can get health benefits, cardio benefits from simply doing a 30-second high-intensity workout. Could be, and again, this is something we can do in the house. Once upon a time, we used to do this thing called running on the spot. Yeah, I know it's not the same as being able to run around a park or being on a treadmill in a gym. But on one level, running is running. And if I want to get a cardio workout in and I have to stay in my apartment, house, whatever it happens to be, then maybe I do that. Even a 30-second high-intensity workout 4 or 5 times a day has a beneficial impact on your health. Music can be another beautiful self-care ritual if you like music. If there are certain artists, songs, operas that just uplift you and leave you feeling amazing, then please listen to them. If it doesn't work for anyone else in the house, then make it a personal experience where you go and lock yourself in a room or just separate yourself from everyone else. And if you have to put headphones on, then do that. But if you like music, listen to music more of the time. Write a letter. Yeah, we still get things delivered at the moment, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it. And yes, some of them might take a while, but they still get there. The benefit of writing a handwritten letter or note or card to somebody else cannot be understated. It makes us feel awesome, and when the person receives it, it also makes them feel phenomenal. And handwritten letter is 1,000,000% better than an email or an SMS. If you can, if it's appropriate, if it's safe, if you feel okay doing it, get a massage. Our business coach, Robin Sharma, has a protocol, 2 massage protocol every week. And Robin has been following that protocol for probably the last 20 years. Absolutely swears by it. Personal experience, it is a brilliant thing to do. So think about that. Practice yoga and or meditation. This is also something you can do at home, even if you're a complete beginner to either practice. There's so many people who share all of their knowledge and experience and wisdom online on YouTube around yoga, and there are so many free meditation resources available. So if that's something that you think might be helpful for you, then try it. One last thing I wanted to offer around self-care, and that is asking the question, who's in your tribe? We know that we are affected in terms of our energy and emotional state by the people we spend time with. So who's in your tribe? Does your tribe include people who uplift you, who motivate you, who challenge you, who inspire you, who make you want to be a better version of you? Or is your tribe a group of people who feel threatened by you and just want to drag you down, and who scoff at your goals and tell you that you couldn't possibly achieve that and that's a silly idea and you shouldn't do that? With great love and respect, think about who's in your tribe. And if it's not a tribe that uplifts you, then perhaps it's time to start looking for a new tribe and maybe looking for opportunities to spend a little less time with your current tribe. Okay, we are out of time. I bombarded you with a lot of information. I hope it's been helpful. Obviously, this is not a question I'm looking for an answer from immediately, but I would love for you to think about this one. What are you doing to practice self-care for yourself every day? And if the answer at the moment is nothing or not much at all, then again, with great love and respect, I would urge you to make this a priority. Starting today or starting tomorrow at the very latest, one thing for at least 10 minutes every day that is about you. I'd love to stay in touch with you. Again, I'm immensely grateful to Catholic Education for the opportunity to share this masterclass. I hope you found some value in it. Please, if there's anything that you feel that we could do, if you would like more information about some of the techniques, some of the strategies and that we've shared in the masterclass, please feel free to reach out to us at any point. We'd love to stay in touch with you. And feel free to connect with us online if you would find that helpful as well. That's pretty much all we had to share with you today. Again, thank you for investing your own time in watching the masterclass. And if there's anything that we can do to help you, please feel free to reach out. Have a magical week. Take care of yourselves. And I look forward to connecting with you again one day soon. Bye-bye.